Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the NoDQ.com live recap of AEW Dynamite for January the 12th, 2022. We kicked off the show in a big way with the Undisputed Era. We had Adam Cole, baby, along with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. They came to the ring for a promo. Adam Cole talked about how 2022 is going to be an even better year for himself and his friends. He talked about how he has not lost in singles competition. And he said that the boys are back together. He said it's a new era. But then we had an interruption from the Young Bucks and Brandon Cutler. Now, we had Matt Jackson and Cutler test positive for COVID-19 recently, but they are back already. And Matt even said that he kicked COVID's ass in a mere 2 days. He sarcastically said, "Thanks for the invite." O'Reilly responded by saying that they did not need the Young Bucks helping them a few weeks ago. Matt said that AEW is their company. Well, they are EVPs after all. And he talked about how the Bucks had the longest reigning run as champions ever, and said that their New Year's resolution is to win the tag team titles. O'Reilly and Fish said that they have the same resolution to become tag team champions. Cole tried to settle things down a little bit and said that it's all in the spirit of friendly competition, and that's why they're collectively the best faction. Unlike the best friends, they're a bunch of jokes, and that led to the best friends arriving. This kind of felt like a WWE opening segment with all the interruptions here. A big fight broke out, of course. Adam Cole hit a low blow to Orange Cassidy, and then Chris Statlander ran down to make the save and help out her friend Orange Cassidy. But then Dr. Britt Baker arrived and hit the stomp on Chris Statlander. Of course, Britt Baker and Adam Cole, real-life couple. And I believe this is their first angle on television in the ring together. I'm not sure if they've done any backstage segments, and there's been references, but I think this is the first time both of them were in the ring together doing an angle on Dynamite. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And the bad guys and gal all had the faces laid out, and Cole hit the boom on Orange Cassidy. The Young Bucks went in for a kiss. They wanted to kiss Adam Cole on the cheeks, but then Britt Baker stopped them, and she gave Adam Cole a kiss. Interesting opening to the show. Interesting to see Britt Baker and Adam Cole aligned, and there will be a mixed tag team match coming up on next week's Dynamite. A challenge was issued. It will be Adam Cole and Britt Baker against Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander on next week's show. And City by the Bay says Cole and Baker, the perfect tweener couple. Hamp Connell sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Hamp. I appreciate it. It says, sorry I was not here Monday. I am in Texas again, and I did not watch Raw. I watched the game instead. With that said, how about my Georgia Bulldogs? Well, thank you for the super chat, Hamp, and thank you for tuning in tonight. I do appreciate it. I understand there are higher priorities out there than watching Monday Night Raw. I totally get that. Dylan sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Dylan. Says, provider doesn't have TBS, still watching the review. Well, somebody's dropping the ball if they do not have TBS available. We need to have TBS available to everybody. Sorry to hear that, Dylan. Hopefully you'll be able to find a way to watch it. I would say use a service like Sling. Sling is a really good service, and it's not too expensive, and that's how I'm watching most of the wrestling shows, although they do not have Fox, so that's a negative. I guess you could get Fox with an extra package. I'm not even sure how that works, but I'm using an app, the Fox Now app for Fox. It gets a little confusing when you have to use like 3 or 4 different apps, but Sling's a pretty good one. I think YouTube TV has everything. That might be one to look into. They're just kind of expensive. And Dylan says he can still watch Rampage. Moving on here, we had a video package for Wardlow. Wardlow has been on a rampage, so to speak. He's been beating up people week after week in these quick squash matches. And then we had what I thought was going to be the main event. We had CM Punk versus Wardlow, first match of the evening. And we had some dueling chants. CM Punk tried the GTS, and he initially escaped the Powerbomb Symphony. What am I, Scott Steiner now? Wardlow, however, was able to dominate CM Punk for quite a bit. CM Punk kind of made a comeback, but then he flipped off MJF, who was trash talking on the outside of the ring, and that led to his downfall. Wardlow hit him with a power bomb, and then hit multiple power bombs. He actually hit 5 power bombs on CM Punk. He went for the pin. He put the 1 foot over CM Punk's chest, but MJF stopped the 3 count. MJF said he wants more damage done. And Wardlow hit a 6th power bomb, but then MJF said, do it again. 7th power bomb. CM Punk tried to roll himself out of the ring at this point. MJF wanted CM Punk put through the table on the outside, so Wardlow did it. He put CM Punk through the table, and he got back in the ring. He left Punk out there. Punk somehow got back into the ring before the 10 count, and then MJF said to powerbomb him 1 more time. So Wardlow was going to go for a 9th powerbomb, but then CM Punk, he rolled up Wardlow with an inside cradle. 1, 2, 3. CM Punk defeated Wardlow. And after the match was over, Sean Spears tried to calm down Wardlow because Wardlow was very pissed off with MJF, and he ended up storming off. So things did not escalate any further. DJW sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It says, love the segment, but MJF telling Wardlow to keep powerbombing Punk gave away the finish. Predictable, unfortunately. Keep up the good work, Aaron. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate the comment. And I am going to criticize this a little bit. I think you did not need all those power bombs to get the story across. I like what they did with it, and it did make sense, but I think that it should have been 1 or 2 power bombs. Hit 1 power bomb, go for the pin, and have MJF stop him at that point, and then the inside cradle. I just think by doing 8 power bombs with 1 of them being through a table, I just could not buy into CM Punk being able to keep Wardlow down for a 3 count. After taking 8 power bombs, Wardlow, he's a massive guy. I do not believe that CM Punk in his weakened state could keep that guy down for a 3 count. You know, it kind of reminded me of Diesel versus Bret Hart from the 1995 Survivor Series. But I think one difference with that was that Diesel had been through hell with Bret Hart. So he was tired. He was worn out. And, you know, Bret Hart was kind of playing possum a little bit. I don't really feel like CM Punk had much of an opportunity to play possum after taking 8 power bombs. So, yeah, I think it went on too long. They could have gotten the same story across without making Wardlow look as weak if they had just done 1 or 2 power bombs instead of the 8. And Mr. Dark Fantasy says, how are you liking the feud between MJF and Punk? I'm liking the feud. I mean, the feud has been great. and this is clearly setting up something in the future between MJF and Wardlow. I thought they could have done a little bit less with this, and it could have meant just as much, if not more. Steve-O says minor nitpick, but he really liked it overall. And City by the Bay sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, hopefully fans turn on Punk. Don't buy him as today. Or don't buy him as baby. I don't think people are going to turn on CM Punk. I think maybe some fans on the internet have gotten tired of him already, but I doubt you're going to see people fully turn against CM Punk anytime soon. Dylan with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate it. Says, the story they were trying to tell was that Punk, rather than overpowering Wardlow, he out-wrestled him. It made sense to me. Well, again, you have to keep in mind the muscle mass of Wardlow, that after CM Punk took all that damage, can you really believe that CM Punk would be able to keep him down like that? I guess some people could. I personally could not suspend disbelief, so I would have done it differently, but overall, I liked the idea. I just think they did too much. We had Will Hobbs versus Dante Martin. Taz was on commentary to try and put over his man, Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, I should say. You had Ricky Starks at ringside, and they started brawling right off the bat before the bell even rang. Dante was using his speed to try to outmaneuver the bigger man, Will Hobbs, but it did not last long. Hobbs got the upper hand for a while, and Dante Martin was basically tossed into the corner, and Dante flew over the top, and Ricky Starks was there at ringside. He took some cheap shots. Eventually, Dante was able to make a comeback, and he hit this really cool-looking missile dropkick. I mean, he got some serious airtime with this dropkick. I mean, it was picture perfect. Ricky Starks kept trying to interfere, and that's when Jay Lethal showed up. Finally, Jay Lethal does something on Dynamite. It seems like it's been weeks since he's really done anything. Jay Lethal showed up, and yes, I know he does like AEW Dark and whatever, but first time on Dynamite in a while that he's done anything noteworthy. And then Dante Martin hit the nosedive to pick up the win. So good match here between these guys. And then we had Eddie Kingston confronting Chris Jericho backstage. You know, they've had some issues with 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. And basically Eddie Kingston told Jericho to mind his own business, and things got heated between them. And Jericho said he's going to be in Sammy Guevara's corner. Sammy Guevara versus Daniel Garcia in the main event. And Jericho said if 2.0 shows up, he's going to kick their ass. And he said if Eddie Kingston gets involved, he'll kick Kingston's ass too if he needs to. We had MJF come back out on stage. He was very pissed off about what happened earlier. And he said that CM Punk got a fluke victory over Wardlow. And he said next week, Punk will take his first L because it will be Shawn Spears versus CM Punk on next week's show. There you have it. CM Punk, he's done for. Shawn Spears versus CM Punk. It's all over, man. CM Punk is on the verge of taking his first ever loss in AEW. So yeah, that's next week. Can't wait for that one. That's going to be a barn burner for sure. And we had Adam Page, the world champion, come to the ring for a promo talking about his victory over Brian Danielson last week. Talked about how he needs a new challenger now. And that's when Dan Lambert interrupted. And Dan Lambert was rambling about how past Cowboys were cooler than Adam Page, I guess, like Terry Funk and all those guys. And Page is just this East Coast urban cowboy that caters to the fans. And Lambert said that Page needs to stop disrespecting the legacies of all these legitimate cowboys from back in the day. And Paige wanted to know, like, who the challenger is. Is Ethan Page or Scorpio Sky going to come down and face him? Paige ended up inviting Dan Lambert into the ring. And that's when Lance Archer arrived. And they did a little Vince Russo swerve where Lance Archer came down to the ring and acted like he was going to attack Dan Lambert. I believe they had some angle several months ago that I do not remember. And then Lance Archer instead attacked Adam Page, used the chair, and then hit the blackout on the chair. Looks like Adam Page has a new opponent for the time being. And yeah, good to see Lance Archer back after he suffered a concussion and had a really scary fall when he hit his head from a couple months ago. Good to see him back for sure. And Curtis Butler says tired of Lambert. Yeah, I think it's run its course. Like when Jericho ended him at the pay-per-view a couple months back, that really should have been the end of Dan Lambert as a character. I think it had its shelf life, and yeah, I'm kind of tired of it now. I agree with you, Curtis Butler. And Calvin Bowman says, were you a fan of Bob Saget? Unpopular thing I'm about to say? Not really. I was not a big Full House guy. Never really got into that show. But RIP, still a huge loss for the world because he entertained a lot of people. Full House wasn't my jam, though. So I may lose some cool points with you guys. But yeah, I wasn't a big Full House guy. Can't come on here and say, oh, I loved Full House and loved Bob Saget. Wasn't really my thing. Anyways, moving on here, we had Christian Cage backstage. He wished Rey Fenix well. Rey Fenix, fortunately, did not break his arm last week. He'll be back hopefully soon. And Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, they're open to any challenge. And that's when you had the Dark Order arrive, and they accepted the challenge for Rampage. So it looks like we'll have the Jurassic Express with their first successful tag team title defense coming up on Rampage. We had Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb. And before this match could even get going, Serena ran down and attacked Shida during Shida's entrance and went right after the knee. Shida, however, insisted on the match starting, and it was basically a one-sided match. Deeb just worked over the knee, put on the half Boston Crab submission, and the referee stopped the match. Afterwards, Shida was very upset about the match being stopped. Deeb then took the kendo stick and broke it over the knee of Shida, and then officials ran down, and that was that. So I guess this feud continues, and they'll have another match at some point, maybe like a lights out match or something. And yes, it was on a little bit before the 9:30 period. But hey, the women did get to main event the 3-match Battle of the Belts card, so there you go. We had Matt Hardy in the ring with the Private Party, and he talked about how this show was in his backyard of Raleigh, North Carolina. By the way, not a great turnout for AEW. I mean, this was a big arena. This is an NBA arena, 15 to 20,000 seats, and they had the lights way down for this show. It was also one of the quieter Dynamite crowd, so it wasn't a great turnout for AEW this week. I mean, the fans were still pretty into it, but I mean, usually the fans are really hot, and they tend to run in the smaller buildings, and it looks good on TV. It didn't look so good. It looked like, the end of WCW when they had to turn the lights way down because there were so many empty seats. Anyways, Matt's family was there. Rebby Sky and the kids were there. And he talked about how he was going to delete Pentagon. And we had this match. Pentagon issued the challenge with Rey Fenix being out of action. Calvin Bowman, I appreciate you being here, but you got to stick to the topic, man. You're throwing me off with all these random comments. Anyways, we had Penta and Matt Hardy going back and forth, the Cero, Miedo, and the delete. They just kept doing that back and forth for a while. And then they started having their actual match. Matt hit the side effect on the apron. However, Penta was able to counter the twist of fate. He hit the Fear Factor pile driver and picked up the victory. After the match was over, Penta cut this promo on Malachi Black. And when you mention Malachi Black's name, it's like Beetlejuice. You summon him, he shows up. Lights went out. Black appeared. He attacked Alex and Penta, and he tried to rip off the mask of Penta. We had the varsity Blondes attempting to make the save, but Black then all of a sudden started laughing. Lights went out, and when they came back on, we had Brody King, who has competed in Ring of Honor, and as a matter of fact, him and Malachi Black are the current PWG, Los Angeles indie promotion. They are the current tag team champions, and he's now part of the House of Black. Big tattooed guy. He's like 6'5", and him and Malachi Black destroyed everybody in the ring. So now Malachi Black's House of Black is in full force. And nice debut here for Brody King being part of this tag team with Malachi Black. We'll see if they add any more people to the House of Black. City by the Bay sent in a $2 super chat, says, hashtag push Penta, very underrated, he's super over. Crowd loves the guy, and we'll see if he gets a little bit of a singles run here. I guess it depends on how long Rey Fenix is out of action. Hopefully Rey will be back sooner than later. Moving on here, we had the Acclaimed versus Bear Country. Bear Country getting some TV time on Dynamite. How about that? I mean, this feels like a match you would see on AEW Dark, but got it here on Dynamite. And the Acclaimed, during the pre-match promo, Max Caster referenced Sting and Darby Allin. Bear Country got no entrance, which is, typically a sign that team's going to lose, or that act is going to lose. Bear Country went for their double team finisher, the Bear Bomb, but Bowens was able to save Caster, and Caster got the win with the mic drop, big elbow off the top rope. And then Sting arrived. Sting came down the ramp, and then in the ring, Darby Allin ran to the outside, did this dive to Max Caster. Sting took out Bowens with the baseball bat, and then Sting hit the death drop to Max Caster. And next week on Dynamite, we will see the Acclaimed versus Sting and Darby Allin. Curtis Butler says, time filler, building an angle match. Yeah, I mean, it was basically building up next week. That's what it was. We had a video package for Pac, who got blinded from the mist a few weeks ago, and he said that even though he's blindfolded, now he sees everything. We then had Matt Hardy backstage. He was interviewed, and he said that something has to change. He was not happy with his loss. Andrade approached him and had a business proposition, wants to make a deal with Big Money Matt. And Matt was interested in hearing what he had to say, but they weren't going to talk about it on camera. I guess we'll see what happens with that. And then we had our main event of the evening, Sammy Guevara versus Daniel Garcia. Man, this is an ambitious match to put in the main event. I mean, I guess they're really relying on Sammy's star power at this point. Daniel Garcia has a lot of potential. Really good athlete, but I feel like he's too much of an unknown right now to put in the main event spot. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of number they do for this one. You had Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho at ringside, so I guess that can justify this being in the main event spot, having Jericho out there. Sammy and Garcia were brawling right off the bat. Garcia was slapping Guevara around a little bit. Guevara got fired up, hit this big springboard dive to the outside, and then Garcia countered the go to hell. He put on a Scorpion Deathlock. Sammy was barely able to get to the rope. Sammy then, maybe as a little nod to Cody Rhodes, he hit the Crossroads. By the way, in case you guys missed Saturday, Sammy Guevara is the interim TNT champion, because Cody had to miss a week or so of television. He's going to be back on next week's Dynamite. So Cody missed like one Dynamite, and they had to crown an interim TNT champion. But anyways, Garcia put on a sleeper. He hit a pile driver, but Sammy was able to kick out. And then we had some interference from 2.0. They attacked Chris Jericho. They attempted to interfere, but Sammy was able to overcome the odds, and he beat Daniel Garcia with the go to hell. After the match was over, 2.0 attacked Guevara, and then Jericho and Eddie Kingston got into the ring to make the save. However, things got heated again between Jericho and Kingston. I wonder when Jericho and Kingston finally have their match, will Kingston actually win this time? Because it feels like every time he's in a big match, he comes up short. Will this finally be the time that Kingston gets a win? I mean, I don't think Jericho needs it at this stage of the game. So we'll see. We'll see if Jericho can take Eddie Kingston to the next level. Overall, show was fine. But after like 3 or 4 weeks of really big shows, you had the Winter is Coming show, you had the Holiday Bash, you had the New Year's Smash, you had the debut on TBS, you had a lot of big shows, and this one was kind of, a cooled off show compared to those other ones. Like, you just had to dial it back down a little bit. They did some angles to build up future shows. So I would give it a somewhat recommend. It was still a good show, but I would not call it a great show. And it did feel a little bit like a filler show. It was more about building up towards the future, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Dylan sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, Dylan. I appreciate it. He says, Battle of the Belts was also in North Carolina after they were already in North Carolina a few months ago. Doesn't matter how hot a product is. That's why AEW needs to tour elsewhere, like the West Coast, Canada, and the UK. Well, you're definitely right about the UK, and you're right about the West Coast too. They still haven't hit Michigan. Like, I'm not sure what the deal is, but there have been 0 AEW shows in the state of Michigan, and they got Detroit, they got Saginaw, they got Grand Rapids. So they got several markets they can run in, but they keep going back to the same markets, and they've already run Charlotte a couple of times since they started touring again. But yeah, you're right. And Raleigh, Charlotte, they're fairly close. DJW with a $10 super chat, or $9.99. Thank you, DJW. Says, Aaron, do you feel that Tony Khan is doing a good job spreading the TV time amongst the talent? Being that the roster is somewhat bloated, I think so, with the exception of Miro. Any update on Moxley? Well, Miro has been injured. Moxley, of course, was in rehab. Moxley, his return should be imminent. I would expect him back any time now. Perhaps they were going to consider it for this week, but they wanted to do the Brody King debut, and Brody King's debut has been rumored for a while. So you don't want to do too much in one show. You definitely want to spread it out. But I would expect Moxley back very soon. And Miro, I would expect him back as soon as he's healed up. Who knows when that'll be, but I would expect him back relatively soon. But I think overall Tony Khan is doing a good job. It's tough. It's hard to just sit here not running the company and judge it. You know, he's doing the best he can. He's got a lot of people. They got Dark, they got Dark Elevation, they got Rampage. So they're trying to spread people out. No Bryan Danielson on this show, which is fine. He did not need to be on this show. And they gave some other people a chance to be on Dynamite, like Bear Country. So it's all good. But it is tough because if you're trying to build a television audience, like they want to see the familiar faces every week. So it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. It's hard for an act to really build up momentum when they're not featured on the main show every week, when they're bouncing around Dark and Elevation, and then all of a sudden they're on the main show. You know, it's hard to really get something going and make a connection with the wide audience. You know, of course, your diehard AEW fans know who everybody is, but perhaps somebody who doesn't watch that often, you know, they're not going to be familiar with the characters if they're not seeing them every single week, and they might lose interest. Johnny Boy sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, Corey Graves in the Royal Rumble? Yeah, that was a big news story today. Corey Graves has apparently been cleared to wrestle again. Now, I'm thinking we will talk about this on the No DQ review, but to answer your question, I would not be surprised at all. It seems like an obvious place for him to make his return to the ring at the Royal Rumble. Kind of pull a Jerry Lawler, maybe. He could be sitting there at the commentary desk, and then, you know, the clock hits 0 and he stands up and he gets in the ring. Hopefully he doesn't have the same fate as Jerry Lawler did in that 1997 Royal Rumble. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Solid Dynamite. I mean, it's always a solid show at least, and sometimes it's a more than solid show. I expected it eventually to cool down a little bit after several big weeks of shows. But yeah, I would probably give the show like a B- grade if I was going to give it the old letter grade. B- would be a fair grade, I think. Make sure you guys stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest. We got a lot of news up on the site, and we got more content coming up this week. We got the No DQ review. We got SmackDown. Stay tuned for all that. Tell a friend, spread the word, and remember, say yes to No DQ. Have a great rest of your week, guys, and I will see you all next time. Hold on a second. That was a fake out because we have an additional super chat here. So let me get to that real quick. We're in overtime now. Mr. Dark Fantasy sent in a $2 super chat. Says, favorite Ruthless Aggression Rumble. I wonder how many people clicked off the video and then they're like, oh, wait a minute. They'll see later that I actually continued. That's why you cannot click it off until the video actually ends. I might go on another 20 minutes now. You never know. Mr. Dark Fantasy said, favorite Ruthless Aggression Rumble, probably 2004. I actually watched that one about a week or so ago, and that was a really good Royal Rumble. And unfortunately, it gets lost in history, forgotten about because of Chris Benoit. It's really unfortunate. They don't talk about that Rumble. I don't blame them because of the circumstances. But yeah, that Rumble was fantastic. One of the best Royal Rumbles ever, in my opinion. At least the Rumble match. I mean, that show had Brock Lesnar versus Bob Holly on it. So, not every match was a really memorable one for the right reasons. But still, that Rumble was fantastic. The actual Rumble match, definitely one of the best. Anyways, guys, take care. I'm out. Say yes to No DQ. See you next time.